Hi guys, so today we are going to learn Unit 11 and Unit 12. So let's start with Unit 11. We are going to learn about past simple. So this is very similar to the present simple that you have learned many units back. So now we are just going to learn about the past. So let's revise. Let's take a look over here. First sentence, they watch TV every evening. So this is present simple, which is why you use the infinitive watch in its base form. So how do you make it past simple? How do you say this sentence if you want to talk about something that happened in the past? How do you say this sentence? Over here, they watched TV yesterday evening. So yesterday evening already happened. So since you're talking about the past, you will use past simple by adding ed. Alright, by adding ed to the verb, you make the verb into a past simple tense. So watched is the past simple. Alright, so it doesn't matter what you're talking about. I, we, you, they, he, she, it. No matter what you're using, you can use the same past simple tense, which is watched. Now let's look at B. Past simple is often, it ends with ed. Okay, this is what you call regular verbs. So a lot of the verbs, so what are verbs again? Verbs are action words. And most of the time, if you're using regular verbs, you just add an ed to the end of the verb. So let's take a look at these examples. We have work becomes worked, clean becomes cleaned, start becomes started, dance becomes danced, stay becomes stayed, need becomes needed. Alright, so these are just regular verbs because all you do is add ed to the end of the verb. Okay, so let's go through the sentences. I clean my teeth every morning. This morning I cleaned my teeth. Terry worked in a bank from 2005 to 2011. Yesterday it rained all morning. It stopped at lunchtime. Take a look over here for stop. We add an extra P. I will explain why later. Alright. We enjoyed the party last night. We danced a lot and talked to a lot of people. The party finished at midnight. So take a look. All these verbs, you just add ed and they become past simple. So these are regular verbs. Alright. Now there are some little changes to regular verbs as well. So verbs that ends with y. Alright. So for y, you will change it to IED. Alright, remember because back in when you were learning about the simple tense, the present simple tense, for example, the word try, it becomes tries, right? So if it's a y, we change it to IES. So same thing for past simple, try becomes tried. Okay? So these words you need to remember. There is no reason or sometimes it's hard to explain why you make all these changes. So for example, try becomes tried, study becomes studied, copy becomes copied. Okay, and then we have words like stop or plan. This one, you have to add the extra letter at the end. So stop stop. If you want to talk in past simple tense, it becomes stopped, stopped. Plan, plan, becomes planned. All right, so you just have to remember. So if you're reading a book and you come across these words and you notice that it's not just ed, they add something extra to it, then you have to take note. This is the only way you are going to learn it easily. All right, if you are to go in and look at all these grammar words and study them by heart, it's going to take a very long time and you're not going to remember them all. So the easiest way to remember is just by reading more books, and then you'll become more familiar with words that people use very often. All right, now let's look at C. C is very important. So some verbs are irregular. Remember in B, these are all regular verbs. So what are irregular verbs? Irregular means not regular. So the past simple is not ed. Irregular verbs does not end with ed. So here are some important irregular verbs. Okay, so these are just some of them. There are a lot of irregular verbs in English, but all these are very important and you need to memorize them because these are the irregular verbs that people use very, very often. So if you know all these irregular verbs, then it becomes easier for you to write a sentence in English. So let's just take a look, and I'm going to go through every single one of the irregular verbs so that you can see how it's spelled and also how to pronounce them. So let's start here. We have begin, began, break, broke, bring, brought, build, built, buy, bought, catch, caught, come, came, do, did. This is very important. Drink, drank, eat, ate, fall, fell, find, found, fly, flew, forget, forgot, get, got, give, gave, go, went, have, had, hear, heard, know, knew, leave, left, lose, lost, make, made, meet, met, pay, paid, put, put, read, read, ring, rang, say, said, see, saw, sell, sold, sit, sat, sleep, slept, speak, spoke, stand, stood, take, took, tell, told, think, thought, win, won, write, wrote. All right, so these are just some of the irregular verbs. So you can see from all these examples that there is really no rules to why these words are spelled this way when you want to say it in a past simple tense. It just is. So you have to memorize them and you really have to be familiar with how it is said. For example, read, right? So it's spelled the same, but when you say it out, it is pronounced differently. So I'm reading a book. This is how you say it in present tense. I read a book yesterday. So the way you say it's different, but the spelling is the same. All right, so there are a lot of words in English that are like that. So you have to read a lot and also listen to a lot to become familiar with them. All right, so let's just look through some examples. Over here we have, I usually get up early, but this morning I got up at 9 o'clock. We did a lot of work yesterday. Caroline went to the cinema 3 times a week. James came into the room, took off his coat, and sat down. All right, so these are all irregular verbs. Okay, so do memorize them. Like I said, this list over here, you should memorize all of them. If it's possible, you or the teachers should do this in a sort of like spelling or quiz, okay? And this is the only way you'll become more familiar with irregular verbs. Now, let's move on to Unit 12. So now we're going to learn negative and question. So this is pretty simple. Like I said before up here, I said this is important. Do becomes did. So we're going to use that word. And in Unit 12, using that word, we're going to learn about negative and how to ask questions. So we use did in past simple, negative, and questions. So for example, we have the infinitive, which is just verbs. So we have play, start, watch, have, see, do, go. These are just verbs, action words. Okay? So in a positive past simple, for positive, we just say I played, we started, you watched, they had, he saw, she did, it went. Right? So this is how we do positive past simple sentences. But in negative, how you say it is I did not play. So you notice, because we use did, remember did is already the past tense of do, right? So because you use did, all these infinitives, all these verbs over here, they're just in the infinitive form, right? There's nothing special to them. You don't have to you don't have to put ed or anything behind them. Okay, so let's take a look at more examples. We have, we did not start, or you could also say didn't. So same thing, did not. To shorten it is D-I-D-N apostrophe T. Didn't. You didn't watch. They didn't have. He didn't see. She didn't do. It didn't go. So because you've already used did, which is a past tense, all these words that comes behind it, you just use the present tense. Okay, thus the infinitive form. So she didn't do. So how do you ask question then? Simple, you just put the did in front. So did I play? Did you start? Did they have? Did she do? Did it go? Okay, so by putting did at the front, it becomes a question. By putting did in the middle, it becomes, by putting did not in the middle, it becomes a negative form. So let's take a look at B. So for B, we have do or does, which is present. You change it to did, which is past. Doesn't matter if it's he, she, it, or I, you, we, and they. Both do and does becomes did. So I don't watch TV very often. I didn't watch TV yesterday. Because you're talking about yesterday, you use didn't. Okay? Does she often go away? Did she go away last week? All right. So let's take a look at C. We use did or didn't plus an infinitive, all right, to make a sentence. So I watched, or you say I didn't watch. All right, so let's take a look. Remember, it is not I didn't watched. You don't have to put the ed because didn't is already a past tense. So because you're already talking about the past in didn't, you don't have to put ed. They went. Did they go? Not did they went. All right. So for example, okay, I'll just do the example later because I see it down here. So he had becomes he didn't have. You did you do? Okay, so let's take a look at these examples. I played tennis yesterday, but I didn't win. Okay, so because the first one is just a normal sentence, I played tennis yesterday. This is one sentence, right? So since this is a regular past simple sentence, you will use play with an ed. I played tennis yesterday, but I didn't win. Okay, so because you use did not, then the win becomes the infinitive form. Okay, you don't say I didn't won. Okay, so let's look at the second example. Did you do the shopping? So because the question starts with did, that means the verb that follows is going to be in infinitive form, which is do. Did you do the shopping? No, I didn't have time. So because you use did, the verb that follows after is going to be in the infinitive form, so it's have, not had. Okay? We went to the cinema, but we didn't enjoy the film. So because the verb that follows didn't, you have to make it infinitive, which is enjoy, not enjoyed. Okay? So let's take a look. So let's take a look at this sentence over here. If you were to ask someone a question, did they go? And then when you answer, you can't answer with yes, they go, because the person is asking you already in past tense, because the person is already saying did they go. When you answer any questions that starts with a did, you have to see like what the answer is going to be. So for example, let me just write it down so you can see it better. Okay, so the question is, did they go? Simple question. All right, so we have a yes answer and a no answer. So yes answer, you will say yes, they went, right? No, they didn't go. So you see the difference? So in the yes answer, you will say yes, they went. You have to change the go to went because there is no other word in front of it to show you the tense or to tell someone the tense that you're talking in. But in a no answer, because you said no, they didn't, you already state that it already happened. So then you can follow up with go. No, they didn't go. Okay? I hope you understand this example. So let's take a look at D. Study the word order in questions. So we have the word order for questions. It is did plus subject plus infinitive. So what did you do last night? All right. Or did your sister call you? How did the accident happen? Where did your parents go for their holidays? So it is the question words if you want to use it. Sometimes you don't have to. This one you don't have to. Okay, so question words. And then we have the did, subject, your sister, you, the accident, your parents, your friend, the cat. All right, and then the infinitive, which is call, do, happen, go, which is the verb. All right, and then the time that you want to specify. So this is how you ask questions. And then short answers is just yes, we have the subject, did, or no, subject, didn't. All right, so let's take a look. Did you see Joe yesterday? No, I didn't. Did it rain on Sunday? Yes, it did. Did Helen come to the party? No, she didn't. Did your parents have a good holiday? Yes, they did. Okay, so these are the past simple as well as negative and questions. It is getting a little bit difficult and complicated, so I am not going to go into the conversations today, but I want you to memorize, especially unit 11. It is very important to remember which verbs you use regular verbs and which verbs are irregular verbs. You have to memorize all these things. Try to memorize it as much as possible, especially this list over here. All right, this list, because it is very common irregular verbs, you should memorize it. And then for other verbs that are not in this book, you can just learn them as you are reading English books. Okay, but for these 2 chapters, it's pretty important, so try to remember and maybe quiz yourself. And yeah, I will see you guys next week for the other 2 chapters.